You've been studying wrong your entire life, and I'm not exaggerating. Everything they taught you about learning is a lie, because studying was never about time, effort, or even intelligence. It was always about understanding how the mind truly learns, and no one ever taught you that. Every day, millions of students spend hours rereading, cramming, highlighting, believing they're making progress. But 80% of those techniques are not just inefficient, they're a complete waste of time. Now, I've spent the last 9 months inside psychology, neuroscience, and modern research trying to decode what real studying actually means, and what I found completely changed how I see knowledge, how I see universities, success even. So before you open another book or highlight another page, stop. Because you're about to understand why most people spend their lives learning yet never truly know. I study psychology and I wanted to create the best studying video on YouTube. I'm doing this because no one else did it right, at least from what I saw. Not another motivational clip, not fake hacks, no study with me fluff, but the real science of learning, built from research, not opinions. Now imagine this, two students, both study for 6 years, same teachers, same books, same goals. But one follows the old ways, cramming, rereading, memorizing blindly. The other applies what modern science knows about memory and learning. Same time, same effort. Yet one ends up decades ahead. The difference isn't luck, it's science. And this video is about that difference. So I'm studying a lot right now, and there's hundreds of books, infinite information with free access. So it's clear now that studying is not a question of information, it's a question on how do you actually study, what do you do with that information, and if you manage to comprehend this whole video, I can promise you it's gonna be next level for you. It's mind-blowing to me that the world gives so little value for this skill. I've tried to search on how to actually study, and there's not much about it, not much golden, solid, free education about it. But how to study efficiently is the core thing of studying. That's why I'm so confused. Why this question doesn't appear before every student, before every studying session? How to study right should be in every school, in every university, known by every student, by any person that wants to get good at something. And it's a good thing that you're here watching this video right now. I really inserted a part of my soul into this, getting almost everything here on how to study right, and I'm happy to provide such value. This topic though, it's really complex and complicated, and the deeper I digged to figure out, the deeper I had to dig, where it gets even more complex. So it's like, the more you try to know, the less you actually know, and I wanna say from the start, there will be a lot of repetition on the same ideas, but with different ways of looking at them, with different arguments. But that will be good for you, beneficial for you. So there's a good quote from Abraham Lincoln. "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." In our case, the studying skill is the axe, and only a minority of people give enough value to sharpening it, sadly. Hopefully you will, if you care about your results. Now, first of all, it's wrong to think that you can study much from a 15 minutes video with some I have the highest grades in my university and here's what I do. No, studying doesn't work so fast and so short. Everyone's different, and what tactic works for some alien, crazy, insane individual probably won't work for you. That's why it doesn't matter who's saying what. What matters is what the research says, what the data says. So don't listen to anyone, listen to research and build that around you. So in this video, I'll talk about the infinity stones of studying, like Thanos in the Avengers. Now let's get to the actual part of the video. I'll talk about the conclusions of this long video, so you'll watch the conclusions in the first 10 minutes, where your lazy brain will be like, oh, I've watched the conclusions, what's the point then in watching the whole video? My brain, by the way, is the laziest, and I'll answer to your brain from the start. That's not how studying goes, pal. What do you truly honestly think? Will a 15 minutes video give you at least 5% from what I know about studying? Is a 15 minutes video actually capable to rewrite your brain, to change your life or change one of the biggest habits that you have? No. An idea doesn't just flip in one moment. It flips through months of flipping, and only after time you get it. For someone, this already sounds overwhelming, but I'll be speaking only the truth in this video with my hand on the Bible. So let's go. To study means getting knowledge, information that you need so you can recall it from your mind later and use it on practice, use it for the comprehension of the problem and finding the solution. Now, shorter, getting knowledge to use it in the future. So you can find the methods for salvation of any goal that you will have, for any problem that you'll have. So what we've learned should be in our head, ready to be used when we need it. The ability of effective studying is not heretic, it's not in our genes, it's a skill that can be trained. Now, the most effective ways of studying are not obvious, they're even confusing at first. First important rule: knowledge is being memorized when it was achieved with effort. The more effort was inserted in that information, the better will be its memorization. And what came easy goes easy. So easy information is like writing on sand, and the information is achieved, but after a few wind flows, it's gone. Now about one illusion in studying. Get this. You can't evaluate your studying progress. We are not able to assess whether we are studying well or poorly. Brain is a tricky organ with illusions. He creates cognitive distortions almost all the time. You can't say how you're doing with studying because it's a subjective estimation. So the only way to evaluate your progress are tests. Tests are the real factor. Tests are the factor that determines our real state. That's the only objective thing that will show you your actual real situation. And you might think about how good you are. You might think, hey, I studied so hard and so well, but on the test you just failed because you weren't that good actually, as an example. When time is pushing and the deadlines are closer, because of our desperation, we begin using techniques that are superficial and with a short memory life, like cramming, rote memorization, rereading, multitasking, just intense pushing. But after a few days, weeks, that information is gone. The most common and used techniques throughout the world is rereading and cramming. That's how we get ready for the exams and successfully pass them. But let's not forget that To memorize something, you have to put effort in it. And when you reread and cram, the effort is too small. That's why we forget everything so fast after. So, in other words, the results are gained intensive but fast. So we're with an illusionary impression that we actually studied and know that subject. But if your goal is to use that information, that knowledge in the future, you've pretty much just wasted your time compared to the other ways of studying. For example, a method known under the name of recalling. It's way more effective. Recall is the ability to re-extract from your memory events and concepts, information. It's a reactivation of that neuronal paths, which makes them stronger and easier to recall them afterwards. Studies show that only one test after reading a text significantly improves its memorization than rereading it or even watching the recorded lecture. The neuronal paths become stronger when we recall the information and come back to it over time. Regular practice reduces and stops the removal process of that information. And if you want to remember something for good and for long, recall is the number one in the hierarchy, going alongside with effort. Next key point, extend the intervals of recalling. It's also an excellent tool for enhancing memory retention during studying. When you're trying to recall an information, you see that you forgot a lot of stuff, so you might think it's not so effective because of that. And rereading is better, but that's a delusion. The effort that you invest in recalling is significantly higher, and the more you forget, the better, because you can try hard recalling and it will double profit you. The retention is higher because it takes more effort to recall something you almost forgot. Next, try to find the answers yourself. Don't wait for the answers. It requires more effort, but you'll be provided with higher results when it comes to retention. So we know that there's people that remember visual information better, others audio information, kinesthetic, so on. And if we study through that way that's comfortable for us, we'll get the best results, right? That's what we think, but that's wrong. Studies say in order to remember an information better, we have to include as many modalities, organs, and ways as we can. We'll get higher results than learning only on one way, from one way, even though it's the most comfortable for us. That means learning with audiobooks, with textbooks, with YouTube lectures, with interactive games on the topic with others, practice, real-life lectures, making projects and presenting. It's better than relying only on one way of studying. The more ways you study, the more methods you use, the better it will be. And it's actually more cool, engaging, and interesting. It's more fun. And that's what we need. We need the same interest in studying as we have for video games. That will be the most fun and the most memory-sticking way. But until then, there's only boring videos on YouTube, like mine to watch right now. Look for the fundamental principles of the subjects. Find the differences and similarities of the concepts. That way you'll remember them better. But you know what? That's kinda boring and I don't wanna do it. Well, that part is yours to decide. What you wanna do, study better, but it's the stuff that you don't wanna do, or study worse, but it's the stuff that you're kinda comfortable with. Depends on what is your goal. If you want better results, this is the way. It will be hard at first, but it will get better, easier, more interesting, more fun, more pleasure with time. So no giving up on me. Next, tests are a great instrument. They show you where you're actually lacking. So look at tests as a chance to see your blind and weak spots that require improvement, so you can actually improve. Study, tests, your results, and based on your results you can see where you're actually missing, and the next step is studying the weak spots. Then test again, and so on. Test in any field help people to reach a higher level of performance. Another thing is that you might not enjoy them, but that's what you might experience at first, because after time you'll see higher results and you'll be like, you'll want to get the tests done because you know it's the best way, and you will get pleasure from tests actually. Next, any new knowledge should be based on your previous knowledge, so when you meet new information you should somehow relate it with your experience, or imagine a situation in the future where you'll probably have to use that information. Introduce the smaller ideas and concepts on the foundation of other knowledge. Now, huge info, at one moment when you study, when you're watching a lecture or reading yourself something, at one point you can feel that your head is done. Your brain is just full, over, can't get any more information in it. Well, that's because what you do is a kind of mechanical cramming, and it requires a lot of short-term memory. That's why we get this feeling of having a full loaded head when your blood is just stuck in here. Cramming has limited memorization space because it relies on short-term memory, which is like a temporary storage system. When you cram, you're force-feeding information into this system without connecting it to existing knowledge, without giving it time to stay, without giving it time to your brain to do its job, so it fades quickly and is often overwritten by new inputs. You study and study, cram and cram, and here we get another conclusion, that pausing and resting is another infinity stone, but we'll get to that later. In contrast, comprehension taps into the long-term memory, which has a much larger and maybe unlimited capacity. When you truly understand something, you create meaningful connections between new information and what you already know. These connections act like a web, making the information easier to store, to recall, and apply in different contexts. Comprehension evolves deeper cognitive processing, such as analysis, synthesis, and application, which reinforces memory through repetition and relevance. And essentially, understanding creates a durable framework that grows stronger over time. So after each big idea in this video, when you hear it, pause, take a minute, take your time, and start again watching. In conclusion, cramming has limited memory space and limited time of retention, but comprehension though has infinite memorization space and way longer retention. Another very useful instrument is creating mind maps, subtracting the key ideas from the material and then introduce them in the knowledge that you already possess. Creating a mind map is like creating a world, but it's yours, in which you always have to keep everything on its correct position in the hierarchy, in that well-structured web by you, where you insert everything in its right place, where everything links into another form of each other, connects and disconnects. Try studying through creating mind maps for a week, and I bet you won't wanna leave this instrument. I use it all the time. There's lots of false beliefs that memorization is something that is genes related with heredity. That's false. Memorization, thinking, studying are all trainable things, and there's almost no genetic factor here. Your ability to memorize is 100% your achievement, just like with physical training. Someone runs better because he trained to run. Someone memorizes better because he trained to memorize. Someone thinks better maybe because they were forced by circumstances in their environment. So it provoked them to think. So memorization and being successful in studying is totally trainable, just like almost any ability of our psyche. Next, look at fails as an opportunity to see your actual state and as a valuable source for your improvement. That's how all the video games are made. So look at studying as a video game. There's no success without fails. There's no high skill without time, effort, and fails. We have to fail and then fix them. That is the real path of mastering something. And you have to understand, if studying goes hard, that means you're doing an important and great job. When studying goes easy, that's when it's worth to worry. So studying goes hard, good effort, remember? So if you made it this far without skipping to the comments or opening TikTok, congrats. Your brain might actually be trainable. If you're still here, your hippocampus just grew 0.3%. You're welcome. The information is being memorized the most efficiently when you can see where you're actually gonna need it, when that information will be highly important. Why is it highly important? Or maybe it isn't. You decide. That's why many students feel that their studying process is way different when they start their practice. You can actually see where and how you'll need that information. And then the lectures, information, books become more valuable and your studying skill improves. So practice, cool thing. Now, the biggest misconceptions around the world about studying. People around the world, students, teachers, universities, are doing a lot of useless work when it comes down to studying. Teachers, students, instructors are used to think that the more often you keep doing one thing, repeat it, the better you'll memorize it, and it's the best strategy. Yeah. If not the best, maybe nearly the best. That's what they think, but the recent amount of research disagrees. The mechanical repetition is the most popular mistake that students do. 80% of the students do it. 80% of the students are studying in a non-effective way, non-efficiently, without pleasure, wasting their potential, wasting their time for an illusionary feeling that they've studied, because that's what repetition does. It gives you this feeling that you've done a great job, good work. Now, another mistake is the easier the studying goes, the better you're studying. So teachers, for example, think that if the lecture goes smooth, clear, the better the students will memorize it. But research shows, and I'll talk about it later, they show that the harder someone achieves an information, the better they will learn and memorize it. So easy lecture is no good lecture. The time spent on studying also doesn't show the quality of your studying, so 12-hour marathons are not that great. Yeah, I know, I'll explain everything later. Now the actual part of the video, let's start. First of all, I'll answer to a question, a very important one. Why studying when AI will probably replace you in the future? Well, until AI will conquer the world, we still got a decade plus to play. So until then, we're still playing. And even if there will be AI, people will still have to study and learn. Kids will still have to go to schools. Why? Because it's crucial for our brain development until 25-30 years old to study, because our brains are very adaptive in that period of time, and studying in that period of time is crucial for kids and students, because if they don't study, they will have a not so effective brain, so to speak, for the rest of their life. That means if you don't study now, as long as you're young, you risk being intellectually limited for life compared to your brain if he studied. Now I know this sounds harsh, but that's what research says, that's what science says. Because after the age 25 or 30, your brain's ability to change, to improve, highly decreases because he loses neuroplasticity. There's plenty of research that proves this point of view, that missing this critical window of learning can have lifelong consequences for cognitive function. It's a biological reality. And I'm not gonna talk on how technology influences our intellect these days. That's a high tension spark for another subject. So let's look at this example. There's a popular research, word gap, made by Betty Hart and Todd Risley. They wanted to understand why children from different economic backgrounds arrived at school with such different levels of preparation, of cognitive skills, of intellectual abilities. And they found that in higher income families, the average child heard about 2,000 words per hour. In lower income families, the average child heard only about 600 words per hour. It was simply about the number of words spoken to the child doing everyday activities. The study found that a child's vocabulary and language skills at age 3 were a powerful predictor of their academic success at age 9 and 10. Children with a higher, richer vocabulary didn't just know more words, they could learn faster, read faster, understand concepts more easily, and scored higher on IQ tests. Your brain is a use it or lose it organ, the critical window for brain construction. Your brain doesn't finish developing when you turn 18. In fact, a massive construction and cleanup project is happening in your head all the way to your mid-20s. During this time, your brain goes through a process called synaptic pruning. Imagine your brain is a garden. In your childhood, it grows connections everywhere. Then, from your teen years to your mid-20s, the brain starts pruning the connections you don't use, while strengthening the ones you use often. By studying and challenging yourself, you are telling your brain which connections are important. If you don't engage in learning, your brain may prune away potentially useful pathways, leading to a less efficient neural network for the rest of your life. Oof! The part of your brain responsible for good judgment, planning, and decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, is one of the last areas to finish this process, which is why the choices you make as young adult are so formative. While the most rapid and dramatic brain development occurs earlier in life, the period up to 30s is still significant. Research indicates that while the brain's ability to form new connections, plasticity, doesn't disappear, it becomes less robust. Think of it like learning a new language. A child can often achieve native fluency with ease, where an adult may have to work much harder to achieve the same level as the child, and he won't even be capable or able to achieve the same level. In conclusion, the assertion that studying while young is crucial for lifelong brain effectiveness is not just harsh opinion, it is reality grounded in decades of scientific research. The cognitive benefits of earlier education are not fleeting, they last a lifetime. A long-term study published in the Lancet followed a group of individuals from early childhood into their late 30s. The researchers found that those who had participated in high-quality early childhood education program had significantly better cognitive skills, higher income, and were more likely to be homeowners than those who did not. That's why schools are a must-have in every country and will remain even when AI will take the world. That's why studying is crucial. Better education equals better brains, which equals with better society, which equals better world. The evidence is clear. If you wanna dig deeper into this topic, please go on. But I've done my part, and it's probably boring for someone as usual, but it will get more interesting. So, to speak less, you study good means you'll have better brain, which means you'll have better life. Doesn't matter who you wanna become or what you wanna do, what you wanna achieve. In any case, everything will depend on how well are you studying, because studying means adaptation, and the organism that adapts better has better chances of success in any field and in any life. Whew. There's lots of research that prove repeating is not a good way to study. There were two groups of students. First group read the text 2 times and they got tested. The second group only 1 time and then got tested. The first group had a bit higher results, of course, because they read 2 times, but after a few days they were tested again and their results were equal. Boom. Which leaves us with the conclusion that rereading something won't do much in the long run. It will work better if you reread but with big intervals of time. But rereading with small intervals or no intervals is useless. So yeah, keep rereading, keep torturing yourself for nothing. Now, this is only one example, but all the researchers say to forget about rereading. By favoring rereading, you say no to effective techniques that require less time and less brain rot. Now, watch this video and you'll know with what you should replace it. So, illusion of having knowledge. If rereading is so bad and non-effective, why the students and everyone does it? Well, probably because it's the thing that they start doing from day 1 of school. It worked. So I guess that's the way to study, to reread, repeat. It's the technique that everyone knows, everyone is told to do. When you reread the text, it becomes more recognizable. It becomes easier to read it, and it gives you an illusionary feeling that you are studying well. That's a common trap for the students out there that actually study hard, that wish to study, that strive for knowledge, that strive for success in their field. And it's such a disappointment and hurts my heart that these pure souls give and gave so much effort, lifetime, health in studying, and it's just being wasted because they were just using the wrong tools. I was in that trap as well, that's why I understand that so well. Testing. an instrument of studying or an instrument to measure. It's often common to think that testing is only making the students tired, because they have to force themselves to study hard, cram hard before them, so some even think that tests are not good. It's better without them, right? Because they require so much energy and effort, it's better to invest that energy in studying itself. Well, my friends, that is so wrong. Tests are the greatest tool for studying. You can see where you're lacking, where you don't know good enough, so you can see afterwards where you have to improve and what to focus on. Doing a test is pure studying, the best form of studying, because it includes the process of retrieval. You have to get to recall the information from your head, which is one of the best tools as well. And the harder it is to get an information from your head, and at the end you recalled it, the better it will stick in your memory for the long run. The more effort you invest in recalling something, the better it sticks. And tests are a recall, and it's a recall of the most important stuff. So it's like tests are triple kill. You recall, you see your level, you memorize the key points, the most important ideas. So there was this experiment. Two groups of students. First group was having 1 semester of studying where they had 3 tests through the semester. Meanwhile, the second group had no tests, but they've completed the whole material of that semester 3 times. 1 month after exams. And at the end, the one who had 3 tests had an average grade of 90%, while the second group that restudied the whole material 3 times had an average grade of 60%. Wow! So, is testing better than rereading the material? By a mile. It's 50% improvement in knowledge. And it's not just 50% improvement in knowledge, it's 50% compared to those that restudied 2 additional times. What if they studied only 1 time? This research really shifts my thinking. It should shift your thinking right now. At least it's extremely mind-blowing to me. So why the tests are the tool? Because you recall everything, generate everything yourself, and you can see what you know and what you don't. Tests are the master kill instrument if studying was a video game, and rereading would be like frying pan or something like that. Comprehension also goes into the main tools. The better you comprehend, which means the more you make sense out of that lecture, of that text, the better you'll memorize it. When it's something very easy to comprehend, of course you want to memorize it as good as if it was something that is hard to comprehend. You see, when you invest a lot of time and a lot of effort to study something and you made sense out of it, your brain will understand that, hey, I spent so much effort on this, I should remember it for good now, so the next time I won't have to invest so much effort again. That's why teachers make a huge mistake. They think if the lecture goes smooth, the better the lecture was. Great teacher, he explained everything so easy, but that's wrong. Anyway, next, recalling. Another obvious point is that to study effectively, we need to stop forgetting what we've learned. But again, how to do that effectively? So, there was a research from the New York Times in 2010 which exploded. It was called Forget What You Know About Good Study Habits by Benedict Carey. So there was 2 groups of students. First group had to read and do a test based on the text after. Second group, just to read, knowing that there will be a test in a week. And after a week, they've done the tests and the results are: first group remembered by 50% more than those who just read knowing that they will have a test. It's just so much that I'm really trying to keep my voice normal right now. 50% better results again, pointing, and there's tons of other research proving its efficiency, so just knowing that you'll test yourself afterwards, it's not enough. What is enough is actually testing yourself. Another research that after, again, mind-blowing. So, again, two groups of students. First group studied with the strategy intensive learning, cramming, frying pan. Second group used comprehension and recalling. Both groups studied for the same amount of time. Now, after, both of the groups had a test immediately after, and the first group that used the cramming had higher results. Frying pan works. Wow! But after a few days, there was a test again, and the first group has forgotten 50% of the information that they knew at the first test. 50% lower results, 50% lower grades after a few days, and the second group has forgotten only 13%. Now you see the difference? That's why grades are also a really common illusion of being actually good. Grades don't mean much. You studied intensively? Well, how about we test what you studied intensively 6 months after? And at the same time, we'll test the one who studied the right way as well. Who do you think will have higher grades right now? I mean, after 6 months. Grades are fake illusionary confidence. Remember what I said in the beginning about I have the highest grades in my university, here's what I do. Oh really? You have the highest grades? Well, no thank you. I mean, with respect. To your passion and your dedication though. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing, but try doing it the right way. Forget about grades. Let's suppose you used recalling as main tool of studying, and you've got not the top tier grades, right? So even if someone has higher results at the tests than you at first, that doesn't mean much anyway, because they probably crammed, studied intensively. So afterwards, even if her grade was higher, you will be the one with more knowledge. You will be left with higher chances in your field, with higher chances of success in your field in the future. In conclusion, cramming and intensive learning, no thank you. That's a problem because students really assume their self-esteem and confidence based on their grades, but that's wrong. Higher grades doesn't exactly mean more capable. That's why I'm trying to send you this message right now. Don't think that you'll be better than someone in that field because you have higher grades. And don't think someone is better than you if they have higher grades. Comprehension, recalling, tests are the right way to go. The 3 infinity stones. By the way, another research also says that a test after studying is good, but more interval tests after are even better. So the more often you test yourself, the better. But there should be space between them, and space as well between studying sessions. Your brain right now is like, what? I have to do tests often? No, there's something wrong with this video. I don't agree, I protest. Because our brain doesn't wanna work. He will twist things in his favor, not yours. And at the end of the day, just like you're doing with sugar, just like you're doing with diet, just like you're doing with exercising, just like you're doing with any bad habit, you will not use tests. And I'm telling you this to do them. It's anyway your choice, but I insist a little. It's just the question either you want better performance or not. My part is completed. Don't trust your brain. You know, your brain tells you that veggies are worse than a chocolate bar. How about that one? He's a real professional in telling you what's good for you, right? Does your brain really know what is the right thing for you? Think about it. Smoking is good, the brain likes it. Alcohol is good. Drugs, more, please. But that doesn't mean it's the correct thing to do. Same rule applies here. I know it's a weird example, but cramming more and rereading for your brain is the right choice. Seems like the right choice. Even though these researchers smashed that idea by reality. What should we do? Testing. That's what should we do. Another result of a research. After tests were constantly introduced in the studying of the students, 64% of school folks said that they have less fear before exams, and 89% of them could see that their studying has improved. So 64% less fear, 89% more confidence. So you might feel like tests are being too much at first, like you don't want to do them. But if you keep pushing, if you make it a habit, performance is what there will be after you. Same goes with universities. Students that were constantly using tests as a tool had way lower anxiety before exams because they know they've actually worked. They know they're ready. But also students that use cramming to also feel more confident, which we already know that they shouldn't, because their knowledge will fade away in the next few days and weeks. So that's the case when confidence doesn't equal competence. When you feel confident because you've been testing yourself regularly over time, that's real confidence. It means you've actually learned the material well and your brain has made strong connections. This kind of confidence lasts because it's built on true understanding, on true work, on the right work. But the confidence you get from cramming, studying everything last minute, is fake. It's like a trick. You might feel good right after cramming, but that feeling quickly disappears. The knowledge you crammed just won't stick, leaving you unprepared when it counts. At least good grades, right? But there will be less knowledge when you'll need that knowledge, when you'll actually need that knowledge, not for your grades. That's an explanation why people with 70%, 80% grades have better performance in their field than those who are with 95%, 100%. But let's not talk about Olympians. Those are aliens with huge internal conflicts and a lot of depression and so on. That's why they don't sleep at night but study. Now about generation effect. You might be thinking, hearing my accent is not so great. My form of constructing phrases is a bit unconventional, so you, the one watching, have to do extra work when you're listening, right? Yes, because some phrases won't make perfect sense immediately, or I'm just not organizing them perfectly for your understanding. However, it's precisely this extra work that makes it perfect. This is where generation effect comes into play. The generation effect states that information is being remembered better if it is actively generated or constructed by the learner rather than passively received. So when you have to put a little more effort to process what I'm saying, that active engagement, that mental generation, mental extra work actually solidifies the information in your memory much more effectively. So yeah, my accent and my not so great English grammar is actually helpful for you to memorize. Lucky me. Now some short conclusions. Recalling is a great instrument of studying, provides long-term retention of information compared to cramming or rereading. The more effort it requires to recall something, the better you will memorize it afterwards. Multiple intervalled recalling is better than non-intervalled. Why? Because again, you studied, so the info is in your short-term memory. So if you recall it while it's in your short-term memory, it's not as effective as when you forget it a little. So you'll have to invest more effort in recalling, which equals stronger neuronal pathways afterwards. Tests are one of the main instruments as well, because it's a connection between comprehension and recalling. One test after studying is great, but more intervalled tests after is even better. Cramming is energy-taking and leads to burnout. Cramming will get you short-time results but won't in the long run. Crammed knowledge is illusionary. Recalling leads to short and long-term success. Only the knowledge that you can recall is the real knowledge. Students have higher confidence in their studying when they practice testing and recalling. They have higher grades, less anxiety, more free time and joy from life. Rotate the studying instruments. Intensive studying against spaced studying. Well, here's something crazy once again. It blew my mind. Let's say someone is studying for 4 hours a day, intensively, no breaks, try-harding. And there's the other guy studying for 30 minutes, 4 times a day, which equals with 2 hours a day. So it's like you study for 30 minutes, then take a break for 2 hours and study again for 30 minutes, like this. Doesn't matter, because the point is, the person who studied 30 minutes 4 times a day with spaced intervals will outperform the person who studied 4 hours straight, both in retention and understanding of the material. This is especially true for complex and dense topics that require deeper processing. The spacing effort shows that information is retained much better when learned in intervals. Reviewing material over time strengthens neuronal connections, while cramming intensive studying leads to rapid forgetting. Breaks between study sessions allow your brain to consolidate what you've learned, transferring knowledge from your short-term memory to long-term memory, from hippocampus to your cortex. Next, studying for 4 hours straight without breaks leads to mental fatigue. You get overwhelmed, and if you get overwhelmed, it reduces focus, comprehension, and retention, and there's burnout somewhere. Research shows that after 45-90 minutes, cognitive efficiency drops significantly, and your studying has low speed, high gas kind of mechanism in that moment. So that's a hello to tryharders out there, and this is where exercise and meditation come in the game, but I'll talk about that later in the video. Without repetition and breaks, crammed information tends to stay in short-term memory and quickly forgotten. It is quickly forgotten. Long, uninterrupted sessions are mentally exhausting and can lead to decreased motivation over time, frustration, stress, and at the end, best case scenario, you'll burn out. Sarcasm. Studies show that spaced practice improves recall by up to 30–50% compared to massed practice. That's why 30 minutes of studying, 30 minutes of resting in this circle, that's not being lazy. It's you giving your brain time to process. You don't study only when you study. You study also when you rest. And later in the video I'll talk about that one too. But for now, the idea is that spaced studying next infinity stone. Variable learning, mixed learning, flexible learning, diverse learning. Are they better than fixed, linear, step-by-step learning? And what do I mean by that? A study was conducted with two groups of children practicing basketball throws. The first group practiced exclusively from the distance of 1 meter, while the second group was practicing between 0.5 meters and 1.5 meters. After 4 months, both groups were tested on their ability to throw from 1 meter. Surprisingly, the second group performed better, even though they have never practiced specifically from that distance. Wow, that shows that's where you should pause right now the video and walk for a bit and think about it. So the short explanation: when you repeatedly do the same task, only one part of your brain is engaged. However, when you introduce variations such as changing modalities, ways, subjects, or techniques, different areas of the brain are activated. This variation helps the brain develop a more comprehensive understanding of the activity, ultimately leading to a better overall performance. So, don't study only one thing a day. Like, today I've had that subject, I'm studying only on that subject. Yeah, I understand that. By studying only one thing, let's say biochemistry today, I'll make more sense out of it compared to studying 4 subjects a day. But that's a false belief, because as you know, studying shall not go easy, and not everything that you think is right is actually right for you, and the research says mixed studying is best. That's why studying a few kinds of subjects, mixing them might only seem like not so productive, but it's only illusionary. And when you start doing it yourself, mixing the subjects, studying might become even more interesting. Multiple mixed abstract learning is better than intensive, deep, comprehensive understanding of something and then moving to the next subject. This strategy is not as effective as it may seem to you. I know, again, it's something paradoxical, but that's an often event in any science if you dig deep enough. So, studying something, one subject deep, is not as effective as studying 2 or a few subjects at once. Not at once, but in one day or in a few days. Combining them, for example, you study it 40 minutes, that subject, take a break, then you study another subject and so on. Rotation in a circle with a few subjects. It's like with reading books. For example, me, sadly, no matter how good the book is, I just get tired of it. And I feel this cramming effect catching up. But when I read 2 or 3 books, for example, today I've read 1 book, tomorrow another, I actually get energized and I read with more pleasure. Variety keeps my interest stable. Reading becomes less mechanical, less boring. I don't know, I'm not sure about books here, but research does say that learning in varied contexts enhances understanding. Switching between books may build a broader context of knowledge. Conclusions. This kind of strategy can be considered as cramming, so We're used to think that intensive deep diving, intensive studying of a subject is a good strategy. It might be a good strategy for short-term retention, but for the long-time memorization, spaced learning has higher efficiency. Why? Because between studying sessions, there's a process called memory consolidation. Your brain needs time to place the stuff from short-term memory to long-term memory. And that's what sleep does in the first place. A good example of active recall with interval learning are flashcards. Now, I'm not gonna talk about flashcards because there's plenty of videos on the internet. Just remember to mix the flashcards, don't learn them in the same order. Right now you can create them with AI, and it looks like the best tool right now is AI for studying actually. It's amazing and it's free. Apps like Anki are becoming too old school. Anything without AI today is old school and not so effective. What can I say? Future. Interleaving is one of the key tools where students mix multiple subjects or topics while they study in order to improve their learning. Blocked practice, on the other hand, involves studying one topic very deep before moving to another topic, and that, as we know, is not as effective. Now, a message for the tryharders out there. Tryharding in studying, which implies pushing yourself to the absolute limit for long hours, can be effective in certain situations, but is generally not the best long-term strategy. Research on productivity, cognitive performance, and learning suggests that studying smarter, not harder, yields better results. So for the tryharders out there, you're doing a great job. You have this will to sacrifice, to use your dedication, but trying hard is not enough. I'm a tryharder, and I've burned out so hard that after 5 years I'm still dealing with side effects, so yeah, be careful. So I will say this to the tryharders. Try hard, but in a smart way. Great! We've met with the complicated stuff. One thing is to be confident in your knowledge, and totally another thing is to actually show that you have that knowledge. The information that you're studying should have an importance for you. Try to understand why do you need that information, why and when you'll use it. Retention will be times higher, and if you see that you won't need that information, well, just don't waste your time studying it. For example, in my case, I'm not studying everything that the educational system gives me, that the university gives me. I've got too disappointed in my past on the systems, so I don't trust them. I think, and you should think with your own head. Do not blindly submit to anyone. Think more outside of the box. So, if you're studying for a profession, try to imagine that exact moment in your future when you actually need that knowledge. There were studies showing that the retention of an information is proportional to the importance of that information. So, retention equals importance. By the way, do you still remember that the harder it is for you to recall something, the more effort you need for that, the better you'll memorize it? That's why trying to recall the old subjects and lectures is really effective. That's why spaced recall is very good, because when you get to the next recall after a few days or weeks, you've already forgot a lot, and that's a good thing that you forgot, because it's harder and it requires more effort for you to recall it. So in the end, you'll memorize it better. That's why cramming and non-intervalled repetitions are not good. You're just playing with the same information in your short-term memory. You don't need that extra effort to grab it back from long-term memory. There was a phrase in the book Make It Stick, by the way, huge respect, and this book Make It Stick, it's just god level book, god level, so huge respect to the authors. Train like you're gonna play, and you're gonna play just like you trained. Simple, but think about it. Pause for a moment. Faster does not equal better. So there's different kinds of tests. Those that you have to write the answer yourself are better than those that you have to choose out of 4 options. And even better tests are when you have to write an essay, because it's active learning and generation and comprehension. Recall. Tests are great for someone that crammed. Try finding answers yourself, don't get them from someone else. It's better if you try to solve a problem and fail than studying and memorize the answer. Now, you might watch this right now and be like, yeah, but I'm talking about some really complicated stuff. You won't understand this whole material from one-time viewing, without analyzing, without making a mind map, without tests, without flashcards. That's a fake understanding, and you know it. When you are on a lecture, writing what you understand from the lecture with your own words is by 10% better for retention than writing exactly what you see on slides. So create your own text, create your own mind map, create your own structure of the lecture. Always think for you. Now, the myth of studying with no mistakes. Don't be afraid of failing. That's the path of mastering something. Fails are actually required and they help you, so use fail as just another tool. Of course, we should try to avoid them, but don't be too afraid of failing. We are humans, not AI. Even AI makes mistakes, so some research even shows that studying with fails for someone can be a great motivational, energizing instrument that will lead to better afterwards performance. Why fails are hard? Because your brain understands he didn't make a good job. He still has stuff to think about, to comprehend. He still has work to do, effort to invest, energy to spend, brain structures to change and create, and he doesn't like that. But if there is something that is beneficial for us and we don't like it, we should change our vision of that thing, our behavior to that thing, because at the end you will win. Fails are the important steps in the way of mastering something, and giving up when you fail is not the right way. Fear is killing your studying. Don't be afraid of experimenting, to be creative, to take risk. Anxiety is stress, and stress reduces your long-term results. Fear can be a good tool for short-term studying, but studying is a marathon where you have to keep your performance and energy levels steady. Students that have fear and anxiety have worse results than they could have without it. Cramming before exams is strongly associated with increased anxiety, and here's why, based on research and physiological principles. Time pressure. It creates urgency and stress. Cognitive overload overwhelms the brain, causing frustration. Fear of forgetting. Short-term memory reliance increases worry. Sleep deprivation impairs focus and emotional regulation. Low perceived control, feeling unprepared, heightens anxiety. Perfectionism and pressure increases fear of failure, and so on. If you're dealing with anxiety while studying, well, that's just reducing your brain power. You're basically studying with 70% capacity of your brain, and that 30% goes to managing anxiety, like, am I prepared enough? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if, and so on. Instead of recalling and resting, you're wasting your energy and your cognitive resource. You're just reducing your potential. So, no anxiety, no fear, no stress. Fails are the things that show your willingness to move forward. Those that have no fails are the ones that are not doing anything. By the way, about intellect. Intellect is not something genetical, it's something that can be trained as well. It's something you have to work and keep working, especially if you're young. Let's take a look at successful and non-successful people in their work fields. People that achieved mastership in their field have spent thousands of hours on single-minded work, single-minded studying, in which they had to jump over their heads and always striving for better, and the best part of their paths were fails. Fails were giving them the biggest amount of knowledge. Fails were the things that made their engines run. The authorities in any field that required studying had this will to persist with a relentless effort on a stubborn problem, getting on your legs first, and use fails as a source of useful information. It is more beneficial to break your head on solving the puzzle than seeing it done. There's a good quote: "Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." Winston Churchill. Now, studying illusion. So I've already talked about illusions in studying through this whole video, but there's still lots of them, lots of cognitive distortions and so on. Let's talk about one phenomenon. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. When a beginner starts learning something, they often overestimate their knowledge or abilities because they lack enough understanding to see how complex the subject truly is. So they start learning something, and there's this beginner rush and euphoria from the new knowledge. But as they dive deeper into the topic, they begin to realize how much they don't know, which makes them feel less confident in their expertise. And there you go, YouTubers that make VODs on any topic, after getting a few bits of knowledge, they feel confident and be like, I should make a YouTube video about it, just like I did myself with this one. And on the other side are actual experts that don't feel confident enough to be a YouTuber, to make a YouTube video. I can't exactly say I'm an expert in studying, but at the same time I have some knowledge, so I don't know. So how does it look like? A beginner with minimal knowledge feels like an expert. As they learn more, they realize the depth of the subject and feel less confident. With continued learning and experience, their confidence gradually increases, but it's more realistic this time. And true expertise emerges paired with balanced confidence level. So yeah, confidence does not equal with the level of knowledge. And while you're studying something, it becomes harder and harder to study. The deeper you dig, the harder it becomes to study. Because let's say you created the first mind map in your brain. And the more knowledge you add into those mind maps, the harder it is to make the connections. The web becomes too huge. But at the same time, with more and more knowledge, the more and more beautiful it becomes. The knowledge starts to become beautiful. the pleasure increases. I'm pretty sure that when I said that cramming and rereading doesn't work and recalling tests are better, people just left the video immediately. Why? Because if I'm right, it means they will have to change. It means effort, energy spending, work, or maybe they're still watching, but after the video, they're like, yeah, cool stuff, nice helpful video, thank you. But they don't change anything anyway. That's a random thought for you. Now, how to be confident in your knowledge? Sadly, or maybe happily, there's one way. Tests. And not just one or a few tests, but tests always on a regular basis with bigger and bigger intervals. Tests are the thing that will tell you if you're good or not, and there won't be just you thinking and feeling like you know that subject, but there will be facts. So think about it. What makes you think that you actually know what you think you know? A good tool for studying is called dynamical testing, which includes you take a test, after you look at the results, see where you need improvement, focus on that bit of information in the part that you're lacking at, learn it, then another test, and again you see again where you need to improve, and so on. This is the way by which you can actually get good at any field, in any field. You look at your weak spots, improve them, and so on, until there's almost no mistakes. It takes time, don't forget. Now, a huge learning studying factor can be an authority. It's called status-based learning. You're learning from someone that you feel like an icon for you in your field. So our instincts come to play here. We are social animals striving to learn from monkeys that are higher in the hierarchy than us. For example, I've got a few people in my field that I have infinite respect for, and anything they say I just know is good. I know that those people know more than I do. They are smarter than me, so I'm listening and learning almost to every word they say because I have trust. It's like an autopilot learning from them. People are naturally inclined to imitate or learn from individuals who have higher status, prestige, or demonstrated success. This is an evolutionary adaptation. Learning from successful individuals increases the likelihood of acquiring beneficial knowledge or skills. People feel motivated to emulate or absorb knowledge from those they admire. When someone is seen as high status or competent, their knowledge is perceived as more valuable or accurate, or as more important knowledge. And more important means better retention. Next important tool is learning from practice. Practice is a great instrument for your studying. A lot of students, when they start doing practice in their field, they understand a lot more. They can understand the value of studying more. So it increases motivation and dedication to study, and studying becomes way more interesting for them. It's another level. Basically saying, once you start practice, learning feels in another way, in a better way. Another important tool is your overall perception of the process, how you view the future, your abilities, and your potential. There's a well-known quote: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This perfectly illustrates the power of mindset. If you believe in your potential and approach the process with a positive attitude, you're much more likely to achieve better results than if you think otherwise. Now imagine this. You and someone else have the exact same level of knowledge, same level of skills. The difference, your mindset. If you approach the task with negativity, doubts, and anxiety, can I do it? Maybe I can't. You'll waste a portion of your brain capacity, of your brain's capacity on these unproductive thoughts. On the other hand, the person with positive mindset will approach the task with confidence, less stress, and clearer focus. Confidence boosts creativity and helps you fully concentrate on the task at hand rather than using up mental energy to manage doubt and anxiety. In the end, staying positive isn't just about feeling good, it's a strategy. A positive attitude allows you to use your brain's full potential, stay focused, and perform at your best. So keep this in mind. Your mindset can be the edge that sets you apart. Yeah, you can pause the video and think about it. Now, why would people choose to stay with a negative mindset? For many, it's a defensive mechanism. By keeping their expectations low, they try to avoid the disappointments or frustration that comes with failure. If you already expect the worst, feeling feels less painful. Failing feels less painful. It's almost like a way to shield yourself emotionally. But here's the thing. While this approach might protect you from temporary sadness, it also limits your growth. By expecting less from yourself, you're less likely to take risks, to push boundaries, or even fully commit to what you're doing. In that long run, that mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You achieve less because you didn't allow yourself to aim higher. So, say to yourself, I am not tying my sense of self-worth to success or failure. If I fail, I don't feel devastated because I know failure is just a part of the process. It's not a reflection of who I am or what I'm capable of. It's a stepping stone to improvement. This way, I can aim higher and stay motivated without fear holding me back. You just do your best, but expect anything and be happy with anything. So the challenge here is to shift your perspective. Instead of thinking of failure as something to avoid at all cost, think of it as a natural part of learning and growth. It's not about being overly optimistic to the point of ignoring reality. It's about having confidence in your ability to handle setbacks and use them for you to grow stronger. With that mindset, there's no need to hide behind negativity. You just do the best you can, that's all. Whatever awaits you isn't something you should worry about. What will be, will be. There's nothing you can do because you already gave your everything. And at the same time, don't go too hard to burn out. But be on the edge, so to speak. So, yeah. Careful not to burn out. You know, by the way, all this training, all of these online trainings that say how to boost your memory, how to boost your intelligence, and so on, well, they are all a marketing lie. But what they do is boost your confidence and teach you on how and what to focus. So just from this fact that you have more confidence and just this ability to focusing better on important stuff, it gives you freedom in being ready to work harder. You will be ready to give more effort. So it's like an intellect increase. You're confident because what you're doing is the correct thing to do. But when you think it's not the correct thing, hello procrastination and low intellect hashtag. I'm stupid. There's nothing I can do. That's why I'm gonna check some TikTok. Now, more about why mind maps. So there's a research where two groups of people were using two techniques of taking notes on a lecture. First is mind mapping, second group is the most common one, linear writing. And a few tests after were taken, and those who were using mind maps as a note-taking instrument on average had 10% higher grades. In conclusion, throw away your linear, nerdy, casual, boring writing. Use mind maps instead. Way more fun. Lecture is more interesting. That's why you should do it with any lecture, with any YouTube video, or even any book, because you're extracting main points, the main important ideas, and connect them in this web, in this mind map. That way there's a more comprehension and more memorization afterwards. There's less text but better results. Ain't that perfect? You know, even if mind maps wouldn't show the same results, wouldn't show better results, it still outperforms casual writing, because it's easier to make mind maps. It's way more interesting to create your mind map than to just write. Mindfulness. So imagine every human has an everyday amount of energy, same amount of energy for every day. And the only way to increase your daily energy is by not spending it on stupid stuff. And there's lots of that these days. I don't even want to start talking about it. Anyway, the best way to increase your energy is mindfulness, which is not thinking about stupid things when you're not studying, because stupid thoughts take your energy that could be inserted in studying, and if you add meditations, unstoppable. You remember that you should not trust yourself on how well you're studying. If you feel like studying goes hard, so many difficulties, trouble, well, remember that the more difficulties you conquer and get through, the better you are studying. After every lecture, while you're on a break, try to recall everything you remember from the lecture on a paper or something. Recall lectures. Recall them later in the day. Recall them after 2 days. Recall them in a week if they are important. Try to recall everything from all the lectures you've done that day. Recall all that information that is in your short-term, long-term memory already. It will stick in the long-term more. Otherwise, why absorbing that information? It's just useless. Don't study useless information. Don't search for useless information. If the lecture is useless and you can clearly see that, probably you should not be there. Now, another interesting research of an interesting thing where psychologists show that intellect can be increased even with a geometrical progression for some people, and that is to have a development orientation. So there was a class that was split into groups. First group, psychologists made a lecture about how memory works. And the second group, they explained that intellect is something that can be trained by them. Their intellect is only their responsibility. That intellect isn't something genetic. So when they have this orientation towards development, towards wisdom, when they get through active, hard studying sessions, that's when their brain develops. When you have this orientation, your brain actually starts to create more neuronal paths. He is ready to create more neuronal paths. So after that lecture, their teachers saw the difference. The second group was more active. They started to strive more for knowledge, less fear, more confidence, and their grades improved as well. So do not be locked for new knowledge. Open your gates as wide as you can, because that's the correct way if you seek for improvement. Strive for unknown. Strive for the spots that are your weak points. Strive for tasks that are hard for you and be ready to make an effort. It was actually one of the biggest mistakes I was stepping on, because I was kind of the guy with too much confidence sometimes. I think of myself as the guy with knowledge, but that's a bad strategy. So I'm looking as well towards improvement. Yeah, it's a sin, so to speak. Yeah, that's not the way of improvement. That's not the strategy of improvement. Well, now why IQ doesn't really matter? Well, because there's lots of research proving that there are more important things than intellect, and these things are discipline, strength of your character, orientation towards development, persistence. Studying is better with higher ownership, with extreme ownership. So you're the only one responsible for your wisdom, and if you think otherwise, then people that will take ownership will have higher chances of better, more wisdom than you do. Giving responsibility for your life to others is childish. At least that's how I see it. Don't give the responsibility on teachers, on your educational system, or on any other real life factor. If you won't do it, studying slows, or for some people stops because of that. They tend to explain their unsuccessfulness because of someone else's mistake, instead of creating the backup plan and continuing their journey. So instead of thinking what to do, they start whining. Now, if you'll only implement only this thing, my part will be done. It's about weekends, so if you're not kinda lazy or unwilling on the weekends, you should give yourself an hour plus on recalling what you can from the whole week of studying. It's a great tool, better than another note-taking session or rewriting the notes. You just sit there for an hour with one and only goal. Recall, trying to remember all the information from that week, which subjects you have. You might feel empty-headed at first, but that's perfect. Trust me, if you'll sit and only think about what you studied, you need about 20 minutes, don't write anything, and after 20 minutes of no writing, the wisdom will come, the recall will start its magic. And it's actually not that hard, and it's so easy and it's beneficial. I will say this is a must do for everyone. Someone will need more than 1 hour, and that's good, even better. Plus, after this recall of the week session, you'll feel happier with the level of your knowledge, more confident, and the interest actually will appear towards the studied material. It's actually really kinda overpowered, and nobody's doing it. Yeah, you can just do it. Do this only one thing, and for a week. No, not for a week, because it's only one time. Do it for 1 month, and you'll see difference. Now, informational hygiene. And not only. Proactively adopting informational hygiene practices is essential for sustaining mental sharpness and overall well-being in a hyper-connected world. By managing information, optimizing cognitive load, and balancing digital use, you can protect your cognitive health and unlock your true potential, your actual potential. The constant influx of information traffic can reduce human adaptation to new conditions as technological changes outspace our internal capacity to adjust. This can lead to issues like declining mental performance and increased aggression, even in young children, especially in young children. Information overload occurs when the daily volume of data, messages, decisions overwhelm an individual. Our working memory has limited capacity, and exceeding this This leads to strain, burnout, health complaints, impaired decision-making, bad studying. So minimize unmanaged digital exposure by choosing and prioritizing. Here's the do not list. Do not frequently switch tasks, as this impairs executive function, reduces comprehension, and increases errors. Do not overestimate your multitasking ability. It often leads to inefficiency. Do not allow constant digital communication to foster multitasking, especially for adolescents, as it can negatively impact brain's development. Do not let constant social media exposure lead to unhealthy dopamine cycles, anxiety, or depression. Do not use screens close to bedtime, as blue light disrupts sleep, and sleep is extremely important for studying. Do not get drawn into unproductive rabbit holes. Be conscious about these rabbit holes. Do not gather information without a clear purpose, as this wastes cognitive resources. As I said, if the lecture is useless, you probably can think what to do. Do not engage in mindless scrolling, which adds to overload without value. Do not neglect consistent quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours. Do not skip regular physical activity. Do not maintain an unbalanced diet or ignore chronic health conditions, as they are a risk factor for cognitive decline and bad studying. Do not let stress go unmanaged. Do not disregard symptoms like distraction, difficulty finding words, or memory lapses, as these can indicate cognitive impairment or fatigue. Do not allow information overload to lead to burnout and health complaints without interventions. And lastly, do not isolate yourself as well. Social connections are vital for mental health and cognitive health. Let's say you know you need to study, but you just don't. Let's fix that in 30 seconds. It's not about willpower, it's about planning. Back in 1999, psychologists Peter Gollwitzer and Veronica Brandstatter ran a now classic study. They asked students to write a report over winter break. Everyone agreed to do it, but only one group got instructions to specify exactly when and where they'd write it. Results: the control group, 32% completed the report. The group with a concrete implementation intention that had a calendar and a date and an hour, 71% followed through. That's more than double the success rate, not by trying harder, but by just planning, by just writing that date on the paper, on the calendar. So here's how it works. Stop saying, "I'll study later." Instead, use an if-then plan, a specific pre-decided trigger and action. For example, it's 4 p.m. on Tuesday. Then I will do the chapter 3 practice problems at my desk for 25 minutes. This isn't just motivation, it's cognitive automation. You don't need willpower, you don't need to think about when you want to or you don't. You're not relying on mood or memory, you're programming your brain to act when the cue appears. And yes, the effect size is real. Meta-analysis like the previous study show implementation intentions increase goal attainment by 200-300% on average across behaviors like studying, exercising, medication, and more. you know you don't have to do it. Just write it down when you'll do it. That's all there is. Simple. No need to do it. Just write down when. That's all. Next, having a mentor. Well, there's plenty of people that when they are left with themselves, they procrastinate. Their laziness goes up to the sky. They can't make themselves do something. And this is where a mentor would be amazing. Because when there is an actual authority that watches over you, that knows to kick your ass at the right time in the right way, for some people that will be like a 100-200% increase in effectiveness. So you do maybe need someone that watches over you, someone that you have respect for their knowledge, someone that knows how to and when to. I could be actually really good at that, but next. The truth is that our brain doesn't stop learning when you stop learning. After you got some information in your head, that information is still being processed in your unconsciousness. It's still running, still working, still connecting. It's the work of our default brain network. You know, when your imagination gets filled with people, with a conflict, or with something you were doing, someone talking with someone, social interaction, you can understand that there's something deeper than your consciousness that works there. And you know what? Default brain network is dozen times more powerful than our consciousness. So it's not you studying, it's you getting the info for your default brain network that does all the job, which is good news. Because that says you don't need to study all the time. You don't need to stay in pressure with studying. All you have to do is get the info in your head and just do something that doesn't use your mind. So your brain will do all the job. You just have to get the info, and he will work with the info that you're getting for him. But if you're texting with a friend, watching memes, watching Netflix or a TV series, Amazon, then you can guess what your brain's default network is filled with. That's why meditations are so good. That's why being bored while studying is so good. Because your brain won't have to do anything but studying, and it's not your effort. You won't put effort. What your effort should be is not to get any additional distracting info that stops the brain's work with the important material. That's why you probably heard it that Einstein, Newton, Henry Poincaré, when they were studying, for example, working on a theory for 3 weeks intensively, and they just couldn't solve the problem, but when they go for a walk or something, boom! While they walk, the answer hits them, and that is how our brain truly works. Your consciousness doesn't do much at all. It's what's beneath your consciousness that matters. It's really good news. You don't have to do anything except get the right info and rest. Because while you rest and while you sleep, the real work, the real studying is being made. For example, Mendeleev, creating the periodic table of elements after he woke up from sleep it's not a legend, it's actually psychology, it's truth. If we don't use the information, the brain just deletes it, because he'll think that it's just not important, and our brain should be filled only with important stuff. Now, if you think that what's in the book is really important and our brain should remember it, well, he doesn't care. He'll think about the meme you sent to your friend because For your brain, that is more important. And yeah, we have to do extra work about that. The memory is always being persistently cleaned. It will be sad that the information that you learned will delete itself. I am doing it myself to give yourself 30 minutes or an hour a day to write everything you've learned 2 days ago. Yeah, it's not enough to just grow through material. We have to get back to the material constantly. It can be even 10 minutes. 10 minutes is enough, but with huge benefits. You can just reread the key concepts of what you've learned 2 days ago. It's an amazing way of recalling without pressure, with pleasure actually. These 10 minutes will be enough for your brain to consider that the info is important, so you'll remember it way better. Now we're gonna talk about sleep, because where is good sleep, there is good studying, and where's poor sleep, there's your brain working against you. A 2015 study from Saarland University in Germany, published in the journal Neurobiology of Learning and Memory, tested exactly how powerful sleep is for memory. Here's how it worked. Group 1. Nap group. After learning a set of word pairs, participants took a 45-60 minutes nap. Second group, wake group, stayed awake for the same amount of time, doing quiet but engaging activities like reading or watching videos, so their brains were active but not learning new material. Later, both groups were tested on the same information. The results: the nap group recalled significantly more, on average about 85% accuracy. The wake group, their recall dropped to 60%. That's not just a small bump, that's a 40% relative improvement from just one single nap. Why? Because during sleep, especially slow wave sleep, your brain replays and stabilizes newly learned information. It literally transfers memories from short-term storage, the hippocampus, to long-term storage, the neurocortex. Without sleep, those fragile memories get overwritten by new sensory inputs or simply fade. In short, sleep doesn't just rest your brain, it files your knowledge. So if you're studying, don't skip rest. Schedule a 45-60 minutes nap after a learning session and watch your retention skyrocket. But at the same time, watch out in not breaking your night sleep. So the best experts in this field say that there is no smart drug or performance-enhancing drug on the planet than a high-quality sleep. Sleep is the ultimate enhancing drug. Now, for more info on this topic, I really suggest you to watch Brian Johnson. Huge respects. He's a multimillionaire, the healthiest human on the planet. Being extremely healthy is very important for your studying as well. So, fast rules for those who study to improve their sleep. The sleep time must be between 7 to 9 hours. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. Turning off any screen, gadget, bright light with 1 hour and a half before sleep. 1 hour before bed, you should have a wind-down routine, which means no studying at all. You did everything during the day, now it's time to chill. Have a healthy diet, not eating also 3 hours before bed. Don't drink coffee. By the way, about coffee, bad news, but the students who prioritize Healthy lifestyle, especially a consistent sleep schedule, will almost always all the time have a more significant and sustainable advantage than one who relies on caffeine to compensate for poor habits, because their learning and memory consolidation processes are not being artificially manipulated or disrupted. So if you even think about caffeine as a tool to use, you'll most likely lose to the one that is gonna go monk style. No chance, I would say. Now, how can studying be related with physical exercise? Well, the research shows that the connection is parallel between these two. There was a research on rats by Gerd Kemperman and Fred Gage at the Salk Institute. There was 4 groups of rats, crucial results for studying. It was an experiment on environment against exercise. The researchers focused on the hippocampus, a region vital for learning and memory. First group of rats had a room full of flavors, full of different various types of foods, of specimens, let's call it the Gordon Ramsay room, plus tunnels, different objects, toys, social interaction. Second group had also the same Gordon Ramsay room with a running wheel. Third group had only the running wheel, only gym with casual food. Fourth group had just casual food, and they were tested on how much neurons they had before and after being a few weeks in those rooms. The rats that had access to a running wheel, group 2 and 3, grew significantly more neurons than the sedentary rats. The exercise-only group produced 40 to 60% more new brain cells in their hippocampus compared to the sedentary control group. Exercise was the clear trigger for the birth of new neurons. I mean, the clear winner was the second group with Gordon Ramsay and the exercise, of course. They not only produced a large number of new neurons from running, but also had the highest survival rate of those cells. Which leads us, diet and exercise. The stimulating environment challenged their brain, forcing the new neurons to make connections and become functional parts of the hippocampus. And if it's on rats, that doesn't mean it doesn't work like that on humans. Probably it works even more for humans. Exercise builds your learning capacity. Physical activity, especially aerobic exercises like running or swimming, it's like upgrading your brain's hardware. It populates your hippocampus with fresh new neurons, giving you the raw material and potential to learn more. Next, about people that surround you. Competition is a great tool. It's great. It's a great evolutionary mechanism that made us, got us here where we are. It's one of the things that motivates us. Comparing yourself with others is actually good for you as long as you don't get depressed because of that. But in our case, it's also a tool for that we can use. In 2001, there was a research on how the best students affect others. So if the student was in the best 25% of the university, his roommates had an increase in their performance and grades as well. So if the best students live together with normal students, those normal students have an increase in their grades and studying. Competition, maybe social imitation more likely. You see, when you have an obsessed mentally ill towards studying, try harder in your room, your grades will go up as well, automatically. Again, because of the social imitation. Your barriers change. But the increase is even higher when both of the students are in the 25% because they compete in a way. You see, when you are good and you see someone as good, you try harder. But these students that are good improve their performance of each other actually. Also, an interesting thing, in 2003, David Zimmerman invested 11 years in a research on this topic, and he found out that if the student that has average grades starts living with a student that has low grades, the grades of the first student are gonna go down. Boom. Now, I don't wanna be the cause of roommate conflicts. It's not me, it's Zimmerman, alright? So, who are you with matters a lot. If you wanna be the best, be around the best. If you want the opposite, be around the not so successful ones. But at the same time, there's individuals like Bill Gates, Brad Pitt, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs that didn't even finish college. So think about that one as well. Next, multitasking. This will be wow. I've got a lot of research on this one, so let's see if you'll wanna multitask ever again. There's plenty of research, and one showed that parallel work on more tasks increases the chance of making mistakes in each by 50%. And the time that is required on these tasks increases by 100%. Now, of course, not all the research has found these kind of numbers, but you can already get it. It should shift your mind again. The popular notion of multitasking is a cognitive illusion. The human brain does not perform multiple attention-demanding tasks simultaneously. Instead, it engages in rapid and costly task switching. Each switch, no matter how brief, incurs a significant cognitive penalty. Even after a quick check of an email or a social media feed, your brain experiences a lag and is not fully dedicated to the primary task that you have returned to. This effect is not limited to major task switches. Even a micro switch, like glancing at a notification, is just as detrimental. Research demonstrates that after being interrupted, it takes a significant amount of time to re-engage with the original task and regain the previous level of intense concentration. This recovery period can range from 8 minutes for simple tasks to an average of 15 to 25 minutes more for complex ones. This hidden time cost is a massive drain on productivity. In academic settings where the goal is the effective transfer of knowledge, distractions are harmful. The data reveals a strong negative correlation between a distracted learning environment and students' achievement. One analysis found that students who frequently check social media while studying score on average 20% lower on exams than their focused peers. This effect is validated by a large scale of international research. 15-year-old students who reported being distracted by other students' use of digital devices in math lessons scored an average of 15 points lower in mathematics than students who did not experience this distraction. Media multitasking during lectures or study sessions directly impairs the cognitive processes of comprehension and memory retention. Studies comparing students who take notes on laptops versus by hand have found that while laptop users tend to transcribe more words, their performance on conceptual questions is significantly worse. This suggests that they are engaged in shallow, precise recording rather than a the deep cognitive processing required to understand and integrate complex ideas. And here, say hello to mind maps, as I was saying. Now, the time cost of interruption. Observational studies in the workplace paint a picture of highly fragmented attention. On average, a worker spends just 12 minutes and 40 seconds on a task before being interrupted. After that interruption, it takes an average of 25 minutes and 26 seconds to return to the original task. This vast gap between the interruption and resumption represents a massive, often invisible loss of productivity time. Other research confirms this, finding that it takes an average of 23 minutes to refocus after a social media distraction. Research has shown that an interruption as brief as 2.8 seconds is sufficient to double the number of errors committed on a subsequent computer-based task. In high-stakes environment, these errors can have a life or death consequences. A study observing 36 emergency physicians over 120 hours found that being interrupted while prescribing medication was associated with a rate ratio of 2.82 for clinical prescribing errors, meaning the error rate almost doubled. 182% increase in errors. You become worse by 182% of a professional just because of distractions. Perhaps the worst cost of distraction is its impact on the quality of work, a cost that persists even when time is compensated. This suggests that interruptions do not merely pause the work, they damage the delicate cognitive processes required for deep creative and analytical thoughts. A landmark study published in the Journal of Human Factors investigated this phenomenon by interrupting students as they wrote essays. The results were striking. Just 3 1-minute interruptions were enough to reduce the final quality score of the essays by approximately 0.5 points on a 6-point scale. So, 3 interruptions each by 1 minute was enough to reduce the quality of their work by 9%. This effect was observed in over 90% of participants. Critically, this reduction in quality occurred even though the students were given additional time to fully recompensate for the time lost to the interruptions. These interruptions aren't occasional, they are constant, and data proves it. A survey found that 77% of employees admit to using social media during work hours. In the classroom, 65% of students globally report being distracted by their own digital devices, and I think 65 is actually a lie, it's more, but one report found that teenagers received a median of 273 notifications per day, which is nearly a quarter that arrived at school days. At the school time. The mechanism of harm is clear. One study that logged computer activity found that knowledge workers check their emails an average of 74 to 77 times per day. Of these checks, 41% were self-initiated, occurring without any external notification or prompt. So yeah, you don't even need to check your email or messages or stories, because there's nothing new 40% of the time. It shows that it's a habit already. What can I say? Great habit. Perfect habit for studying especially. It's a great habit for any work. Multitasking and distractions. Now, thinking burns calories. Different mental states and tasks affect the brain's energy consumption. Strenuous cognitive activities require more glucose than simple restful states. An 8-hour day of intense, cognitively demanding work, such as learning a new musical instrument, can burn approximately 100 to 200 more calories than a day spent on passive activities. For students, it can be around 300-400. Distractions, interruptions, and task switching increase the cognitive workload of any given task by forcing the brain to constantly refocus, manage competing stimulants, and clear the attention. They increase the overall energy demands. When the brain is overloaded with information and tasks, its working memory becomes overwhelmed, and the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive function like planning, reasoning, and impulse control, burns through its available glucose stores. This depletion leads to a measurable decline in cognitive performance, and you can't just add more glucose or sugar in the diet. So, your impulse controlling system has a limited glucose storage, and if you spend that on multitasking, on the distractions, it becomes even easier to distract yourself the more you distract. So, yeah, the more you distract yourself, the easier it will be to distract the next time. So, the chances of being unable to control your impulses are going up. A distraction or a noisy environment can be perceived by the brain as a threat, triggering the release of stress hormones like cortisol, which can further impair cognitive function. Research explicitly classifies frequent work interruptions as one of the most common and potent stressors in the modern workplace. On days when participants experienced a high number of workflow interruptions, they reported significantly higher levels of emotional exhaustion and lower levels of satisfaction with their performance. The phone creates a persistent state of mental preoccupation that actively drains well-being. Other data supports this, showing that social media comparison can increase anxiety levels by 32%, and that using social media before bed increases sleep disturbance by 40%. Another research had 3 test groups of students. First, had the phone in the other room before the test. Second group had the phone in their pocket. Third group had the phone on their desk. And guess what? First group had the best results. So just having your phone anywhere near you is already demanding. Whoa. Trait anxiety is another critical factor. Individuals with high levels of anxiety tend to perform more poorly in the presence of distracting noise and music, as their cognitive resources are already partially consumed by internal worries. And there's lots of data. We have seen that distractions are correlated with a 20% reduction in exam scores and a 15 points drop in international math assessments. In the workplace, a simple 2.8 seconds interruptions can double error rates, while interruptions during high-stakes tasks like medical prescribing can double the incidence of clinical errors. Beyond time and accuracy, the quality of our output suffers. Even with compensated time, interruptions lead to less developed and lower quality creative and analytical work. Finally, this report shows the profound human cost, the increased cognitive workload from managing distractions. It's directly translated into greater brain energy consumption, leading to the physical state of cognitive fatigue. This resource depletion is completely linked to emotional exhaustion, elevated stress, and diminished psychological well-being. Distraction does not just make us less effective, it makes us more tired, more stressed, more unhappy, and more prone to burnout. So how about that one? Multitasking is not our thing. It's not the human thing. Who thinks they are multitaskers are wrong. Read the research. The normal brain suffers from multitasking. So doing one task, finishing it, going to the next one is what our brain likes, is what will make you feel better. Now I know we shouldn't do what our brain likes, but in this case, we should do it. Yeah, there's exceptions in every rule. So when someone thinks that they can study and also entertain themselves with a video, with a group texting, are doing a not so great job. Plan your studying and go to the next task after you finished previous. Learn to study in a logical order, and then you most probably will have some time left for entertainment as well. Resting, recreation, relaxation, when, where, how much? Well, studies show that after 45 minutes of intensive work, intensive studying, our brains start to function with lower performance. So the best thing is to stop at 45, rest for 15 minutes and start again 45. That's why lectures are so bad in universities, because they are 2 hours long. Now, there's plenty of people that use resting as another way of absorbing information, like phone, notifications, email, checking, TikTok, and so on. You know, that's like running for 45 minutes and doing some pull-ups and push-ups for 15 minutes. How does that count as resting? I don't know. And that 15 minutes of scrolling usually transforms into 2 hours of scrolling. And that's another story. Yeah. When we talk about resting, it means actually resting. If you were occupied for 45 minutes with the absorption of information, these 15 minutes of rest, you'll have to do the opposite, which is like some walk, light exercising, stretching, meditation, mindfulness. Basically just relax, feel the pleasure of resting, feel the pleasure of having no noise, no distractions, feel the pleasure of your brain getting the required oxygen, feel the pleasure of not thinking about anything, of not absorbing additional information. And after these 15 minutes, your brain won't be your enemy anymore. He'll be the one that actually will want to study again, to get back to studying. You won't need power of will or discipline. Your brain will do everything and work for you if life is boring. So what now? It's the end. It's the end. Alright, future genius. You've collected the infinity stones. You have the power. Now what? Forget the passive student life or highlighting until your marker runs dry and rereading until your brain feels like a soup. That's the tutorial level. You've just unlocked New Game Plus. Your main new weapon is recall. Stop staring at the monster, which is the textbook, and start fighting it. Test yourself. Your new potion is spaced repetition. Chugging 10 potions at once, cramming, makes you sick. Sipping them over time, which is spaced practices, makes you invincible. Your new skill tree is variety. Don't just use the same boring sword swing. Mix it up with spells like videos, with other swords like mind maps and alchemy. Practice problems. Your brain is not a trash can to be stuffed with facts. It's a muscle to be trained, a garden to be cultivated. It will complain, it will tell you that scrolling TikTok is better use of your time than a test. Do not trust it. It's a lazy cat that just wants to lie in the sun. You are the human who must put the cat on a treadmill. So go forth, fail spectacularly on a practice tests, and thank yourself for finding the weakness before it mattered. Make your studying so actively, annoyingly effective that your own brain will be surprised by what you can do and what it can do. The final boss, your exams, your future career, doesn't care how long you studied, it only cares what you can recall and use. And I suggest you later in the video to make a mind map yourself based on everything you can recall from this video, and in a week rewatch this video again. You are now equipped. Now get out of here and forget something so you can remember it better later. Go get 'em.